This isn't actually protectionism. It's just like kneecapping trade to try and grab power. I would love to talk to a conservative who wants to defend this. But there isn't a defense. There's some island that has a population of 0, only inhabited by penguins. They've got a 10% tariff. I'm really angry about this. So that's a terrible policy.
It might be.
It's not just cheap for investor class. It's cheap for everyone.
No, that's not true. No,
okay,
that's
how
not
is
true.
it not cheap for everyone? How does the lower cost of goods not go into the consumer, not go to the consumer?
Well, sorry, no, yeah, it is cheaper, but you're also losing.
Okay, so it's cheaper for everyone. So it is cheaper for everyone, isn't it? Because they have to compete with not only Chinese workers, but also robots. So, as pretty much everyone in the world knows, especially people who had literally any money in the stock market before the last week, knows, yesterday, Trump announced it was Liberation Day. Liberation Day, Americans are taking back control. They're sick of being ripped off by other countries. Sick of being ripped off by other countries. That's what he's saying. He's telling us. Sick of being ripped off by other countries. What does he mean by ripped off? Well, some companies, some countries export more to the US than they import from the US. That's what he means by being ripped off. That's what he means. That's literally it. That's how they've accounted for these. That's how they've calculated this. Is they send more stuff to us than we send to them. That's the whole calculation. So what is essentially happening here is Americans, and this is, from what I understand, this is actually common conduct in America. I've seen a lot of this on public freakouts. What Americans are essentially doing right now is they're walking up to the McDonald's worker and they're getting pissed off that they ate so much food. They're getting really mad at the McDonald's worker for selling them so much food. That's where we're at. It's like baffling. There's nothing you can say. It's beyond parody. There's nothing you can say about it. There aren't like serious actual Republicans defending this. Not sitting Republicans, not voters. Purely paid mouthpieces on Twitter are defending this. I have not seen any grunt even attempt to defend this because it makes no sense. Even if, right, let's say you like tariffs, and like tariffs are a tool ultimately. They're not, they're not good or bad. Tariffs are a tool. They're a tool for negotiation. Even if you want tariffs, let's say you want to use tariffs. It's an incredibly stupid, self-defeating, insane idea to simply apply broad tariffs with no plan for where you're heading with that. Like, you don't have a plan laid out to build up specific industries in the US that you want back in the US. All you've done is, in a retarded scattergun approach, decided that everyone's being mean to you and said, well, you're being mean to us, so we're going to make everything worse for our own citizens. It's so dumb. And here's the other thing. There's two lines of thought that are being pushed here, right? In tandem, basically, but they're contradictory. On one hand, it's Trump got in because Americans feel like their purchasing power is diminished and they want eggs to be cheaper, basically. I'm being sort of patronizing the way I phrase that, but that's the TLDR, right? So that's one line of thought. Now, there's a contradictory line of thought, which is, we want jobs back in the USA. If you don't realize why that's contradictory, obviously the reason why those jobs left the USA is because it was cheaper to do that outside of the US than inside of the US. So even ignoring the tariffs, if you bring that manufacturing back, the costs go up. No, you just have to pay more. Suck it. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. You're just wrong. You're just totally wrong. It's not just Europe having to pay more. I assume you're trolling. There's no way anyone's still this stupid. It's not just us paying more. You will be paying more. You, as an American consumer, you will be paying more. That's how it is. Because Trump has decided on this stupid analysis that trade deficit equals being ripped off. It's baffling. It is like I'm not an economics guy. And even I can see how fucking stupid this is. Nobody with any sense is defending this whatsoever. It's pretty insane. You're using a program to make your hands look smaller in real time. Ha 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 ha. I'm mirroring Trump, yeah.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. Waiting for a long time. April 2nd, 2025.
Okay, Bud, how's them Mousie's takeover in your country going? Dude, your whole country, I know you're baiting, but your whole country is going to be ran by fucking H-1B Indians within 5 years. Like, if you think, the idea, this is like the most hilarious part, right? It's like the retarded swing state, Rust Belt, whatever voters, loser, idiot, white people who can't get a decent job, voted for Trump for the contradictory positions of want lower prices, but also want more American jobs. And then the best part is, even the jobs that are getting made are going to get filled by Indians. Like, if you think that Elon and Thiel aren't just going to ship over a bunch of H-1Bs or, yeah, exactly, or use AI, do automation shit, you're smoking crack. You're smoking crack. You're on crack. It's just insane. So, literally, it's total loss on every end for basically the right-wing, for right-wing populism in America. It's like, for the people who genuinely believed in that, you're raped on every end. You're just completely raped.
American industry was reborn the day America's destiny was reclaimed and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. Starting tomorrow, the United States will implement reciprocal tariffs on other nations. It's been a long time since we even thought of that. We used to think about it a lot. We didn't think about it for many decades, and you see what's happened. For nations...
Tariffs protect industry? Tariffs... Oh, Jakub, I know you're trolling. But here's the thing, right? Protectionism isn't always bad. Obviously, sometimes you want to protect industry. For instance, there's a lot of countries that tariff food products past a certain point because they want to have control over the food supply in their own country, because that's like a national security interest of the people, and they're willing to accept a higher price for the product in order to maintain that national security interest. What Trump is doing, universal scattergun tariffs with no rhyme or reason, no intelligent rhyme or reason as to how they're applied. This isn't actually protectionism. It's just like kneecapping trade to try and grab power. Because here's the reality, okay? Here's probably what's actually going on. Tariffs are essentially a tax that a president can unilaterally apply. It is essentially taxation without representation. There isn't an actual process followed here. There isn't input from anyone else. This isn't popular. It's not really legitimate, backed by popular support move. It is a authoritarian tactic, frankly, that seems like basically the point is to extort businesses, to bend businesses to his will and countries to his will. To basically say, okay, here's this huge barrier to trade. Here's this huge barrier to business. What are you going to do to get that lifted? What can you give me to get that lifted? That seems to be the purpose, fundamentally. Congress can vote to stop the tariffs. Constitutionally, they only last 60 days without an official vote. But my understanding is that basically because the president has emergency powers to implement tariffs, he can basically just keep them on. That was my understanding. I could be wrong. Yeah, exactly. He used the idea of the fentanyl to justify it. Yeah. So yeah, you can say that they only last 6 days, but that's not really true.
Nations that treat us badly, we will calculate the combined rate of all their tariffs, non-monetary barriers, and other forms of cheating. But we will charge them approximately half of what they are and have been charging us. So the tariffs will be not a full.
Okay, Jockey, you're claiming you're not trolling, and that's very sad for you if that's the case. It's a blanket tax that forces investors to invest in domestic production instead of foreign trade. Okay, so Samsung, let's say, Samsung, move a plant to China because China has far less workers' rights, far lower pay, everything, you know, much easier to run a business in China, run a manufacturing business in China. Okay, they've moved everything to China. You put on a tariff that is uncertain. Okay, these aren't like well-backed tariffs that everyone thinks are going to last for ages. People are very like, what's gonna happen with these tariffs? So that's the attitude of everyone right now. So you implement these tariffs. The plant has already moved out. All the manufacturing has already moved out. Are Samsung going to immediately begin building in the United States a factory that employs workers in the same way their factories in China do, workers in the United States? No, that's not going to happen. That's fucking retarded. Especially if you haven't made a plan within your businesses or actually got a plan for moving the industry back, if you're just doing scattergun tariffs towards every country you can. That's fucking stupid. So they're not going to immediately move their plants back. What's going to happen is either they're going to gradually begin onshoring over the course of years as they assess how much they want to put in the US. And then the result of that is not going to be the same amount of jobs. It's going to be a lot of automation. It's going to be H-1B jobs. It's going to be low-paid workers. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good for You're not bringing back this huge manufacturing section. Fuck me. Industry, whatever. Sector. That's what I meant. You're not going to bring back this huge manufacturing sector immediately. That's not happening. Or at all, really. And then what? So, and if they don't do that, let's say they don't bring it back, all that happens is, okay, they keep manufacturing them in a bunch of different countries, and they make it a bunch more expensive in the US to purchase these products. All you do is make the consumer electronics way more expensive. And they just keep using the old supply chains. Because it's not just a matter of, oh, well, make your phone in America. There's a whole supply chain that goes from country to country to country. There's a whole bunch of different things involved in all of these products. And the more restrictions you put to tariff, it doesn't just, more restrictions you put on trade, it doesn't just impact it like once. It's not just like, oh, you get 10% more on your Samsung. It's like, no, it might go into the US and out of the US and into the US and out of the US, and then it gets made. And then back into the US. That's what happens with cars a lot. They move across the north and south border a lot. Parts of them before they get made. So, like you're not even making sense. I don't have any in chat. You're not even making any sense. So, I mean, if you've got something you genuinely want to say, like your messages don't make sense, I'm timing you out for 30 minutes from chat. You can join the Discord, though. Discord.gg/Kuihman. Okay? Very awesome. You can join there, and you can come on stream and talk to me about it. Okay? You can explain why tariffs is a great idea. I'm talking to, I don't have any. C-Space, you're getting a 24-hour timeout just immediately because you're just a pure troll. And it's not even funny. You just say things that are wrong repeatedly because you know they're wrong. It's not funny.
Reciprocal, I could have done that. European Union, they're very tough, very, very tough traders. You know, you think of European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. It's so sad to see. It's so pathetic. 39%, we're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half. At the same time, we will establish a minimum baseline tariff of 10%. You notice that on the chart? And that'll be on other countries to help rebuild our economy and to prevent cheating.
Cheating being trade deficit. That's cheating apparently. Is having a trade deficit is cheating. Right. Wow, very smart stuff. This is really intelligent, high level stuff that's happening here. I would love to talk to a conservative who wants to defend this. But there isn't a defense. You will look retarded. You will look fucking stupid. If this Jarkub guy called in, you'd look like a fucking retard. There is no defense for this. There's a reason why they're not defending it. There's a reason why this is absolutely getting the Republicans raped right now. Pull in Extreme Dad. He's not here. I thought you meant he was in VC. I was about to pull him in. You literally you have to be so fucking stupid. You are just walking out into the absolute, just most dipshit position in the world. Do we have the numbers on the board that are accurate? They can't be right. What do you mean by accurate? What do you mean by accurate? When they say that you realize, okay, let me explain to you how the numbers been worked out. Their idea, I explained this earlier, their idea of being cheated by other countries, Trump's idea of being cheated by other countries, the way he works it out is the trade deficit with that country versus their imports to the US or whatever. So it's, yeah, it's the, sorry, the other way around. So it's the trade deficit times 0.5, basically. They work out the trade deficit by getting the imports to the US and then taking away, dividing the exports from the US, times it by 0.5, and that's roughly how they calculate what the tariffs are. It's not actually an evaluation of here are the barriers to trade, imports, sorry. Here are the barriers to trade. It's not an analysis based on that at all. It is purely like people are saying, it's more determined by trade volume, right? Because if a country is does a lot of manufacturing and sends stuff to the US, then they're going to have a huge tariff now. And that's all it does. That's like all it's determining. It's not actually determining anything about the fairness of that trade. It's just, are they sending a lot of stuff to the US? It's like beyond retarded. And so this is just causing absolute, just havoc. I don't understand how anyone is just still burying their head in the sand about how fucking terrible this is. And they're like, what was it? They put a 10% tariff, that literally the default tariff to every country, even countries where there's a population of 0. There's some island that has a population of 0, only inhabited by penguins. And they've got a 10% tariff. What sense does this make? They've not even thought about it. It is the most ham-fisted, lazy policy in the world. It's barely even policy. It's just like seething. It's like grievance politics. It's like, oh, we're really mad that manufacturing changed. They're in jobs in different country now. Oh, I'm really angry about this. But no plan to bring the jobs back. No plan for any real improvement. It's just like lashing out at allies too. So is there a little news video or something we can watch about this? I think there's someone found it on Twitter. No, I've said 3 times already in the segment exactly how they calculate the formula. But yeah, that Twitter post is accurate, I believe. It's literally just the trade deficit. Basically, it's just like, do we have a trade deficit? Yes. Okay, tariff. Thank you for the $5, Hick Fury.
It'd be one thing if it was calculated for several variables, but it is just the most basic tariff. No supporting policies to compensate either. Epic.
Thank you for $5.
At this point I really think Macron or Trudeau smashed his wife.
Well, it's just a desperate play to gain masculinity back. It's like, and it's just like another example of just like the complete incompetence. There's only, you can't pull the, actually, this is 5D chess at this point when the stock market's doing what it's doing. You do not get to pull that at this point. When your own 401k is getting totally raped. How does anyone do that with a straight bet? Their 401k is getting raped and they're like, oh, no, I think we should hold up. We should trust the plan, guys. We need to trust the plan, guys, okay? Remember Trump turn 1? Guys, just trust the plan, guys, okay? As they just like as their kids' college fund, it's just like it's just like absurd. It's totally absurd. Like no one's even attempting it. No one is even attempting it. Spinal, usually the biggest contrarian on this Trump stuff, not even attempting it. In fact, let's watch this Brian Tyler Cohen video. I don't mind this guy. This guy's okay. Fox News abandons
With the stock
Trump.
market in absolute freefall today, let's take a look at Fox Business, home of some of Donald Trump's biggest allies on television, and see how the coverage is looking amid Trump's Liberation Day rollout.
The charts that were released, what looked like, at least watching it on TV, what looked like tariffs that are charged the United States by other nations were not.
Yeah, this guy is like just David Pakman. It's just like watching David Pakman. He has like it's like no original thought of his own. It's just like if you want the MSM take, but on YouTube, Brian Tyler Cohen's there for you.
Not tariffs.
Correct.
They were, the way that was calculated, they created a formula that divided a country, let's say China, a country's trade surplus with the United States just on goods by its total exports based on data for last year from the Census Bureau. And then for what we're going to.
The tariff is a long-term play in order to restabilize manufacturing in the US. You don't need to be worried about your 401k until you're retired. Dude, this is like the most retired. Please. Mighty Basement, would you like to join the Discord at discord.gg/Kuihman? Come on and talk to me about this. I don't particularly want to argue with you from chat endlessly. I would love to talk to someone stupid enough to defend this, though. Absolutely, I'm dying for it.
Going to tariff them, we cut that number in half by 2. So that was supposed to be some expression of how we are wronged on trade by these other nations. But those.
Oh, we've got Extreme Dad. We've actually got Extreme Dad. Hi, Extreme Dad.
Man.
Can you hear? Your sort of like connection sounds weird.
Oh, it does?
It sounds a little bit better now.
Oh. Asking you shall receive. I mean, I heard you.
Are you still defending the tariffs?
Well, first of all, I just want to know, what precedent do you have to say that they don't work?
What do you mean? What precedent do I have to say that they don't work?
What
you can't just
you
can't just tariff aimlessly and expect good things to happen.
In theory, or in principle, in like, are you talking about a situation where this has been applied and failed, or are you talking about in theory it doesn't work?
Yeah, no, like both. It has been applied. What do you mean by Extreme Dad? I don't know of any country that is.
Are you using? What?
You're like being retarded, Extreme Dad. Just tariffing countries.
Like, how do you know it doesn't work?
Stop talking for 1 minute. Extreme Dad, you can't just tariff and expect good things to happen. What do you expect the economy to fall in the exact way you want it to fall when you just disrupt and make things
anything.
Okay, I'm explaining to you why this is a problem, Extreme Dad. Do you expect the economy can you fucking listen for 2 seconds, man? Or are you that fucking impatient, you stupid fuck? God damn, bro. Shut the fuck up. You can't just expect the market to fall exactly where you want it to when you just throw a bunch of blocks in the way of trade. It's not just suddenly going to reformat exactly the way you want it to. All Trump has done has put flat tariffs on like every country with no plan to change industry, no plan with manufacturing companies to onshore, nothing.
Okay.
So that's a terrible policy.
It might be. And it might not work out. It might not pan out. But the thing is that I don't know how you can say that this is a bad idea when it hasn't been done before.
Dude. I just laid out to you exactly how it was a terrible idea, and then you go.
I understand that you're saying that you think it is a bad idea. You've made your dissertation clear. You don't think it's a good idea. I get that. Everybody gets
Extreme
that.
Dad, have you checked the stock market today? I don't need to think. I can just look.
And you don't very frequently, and that's why you're so charming.
Yeah,
But
just
um,
go look,
but
Extreme Dad. You could feel free to look. I'm looking right now. It's not looking great,
yes, the
Extreme
stock
Dad.
market is not doing fantastic today, but it'll bounce back. Everything's
Yeah,
gonna be
it's
fine.
just gonna bounce back. When's it gonna bounce
Yeah,
back, Extreme Dad? When do you reckon?
eventually. What
Eventually.
I'm
Oh,
saying
right.
is
So
that
how much
President
money does the average American have to lose before it bounces back? How much money is the average
I
American going to
don't
lose
I
before it
don't
bounces back?
know, and it doesn't matter because the fact of the
It
matter
doesn't
is
matter that average
we
Americans
elected
lose money. It doesn't matter that the average Americans are losing a bunch of money.
not in respect to the execution of tariffs.
Okay, so what's the benefit they're going to get from the tariffs that's going to outweigh this loss of money they're
I
experiencing
don't
right
know
now?
if there is going to be a benefit for the average American. But the average American elected President Donald Trump, and President Donald Trump has decided that this is the best course of action for the United States of America as it stands here and now today, or in this day, like
Mm-hmm.
in the present time.
So
He's decided that this
you're
is what
fine
we're going to do.
so you're fine with Trump just like if he just completely destroyed your life, you'd be totally happy with that.
Well, if he just destroyed my life, he'd have to
Do you think
you
anyone's had
know,
their life destroyed today, Extreme Dad? These Trump's decisions.
I don't know. Have
They
they?
almost certainly have.
Do you have
Yes,
an
yes,
example of that?
probably thousands of
Are you
people.
pointing to? Can you tell me? Probably thousands of people, and
Yeah,
probably tariffs won't work, and probably it's a bad
probably
idea.
thousands of people because anytime there's a huge amount of economic
You
downturn
don't
like that, yeah,
know
a huge amount of
for
people lose a huge
sure
amount of property and a huge amount of
what's
assets. Yeah.
going to happen. You don't know.
I
You have
just
no
explained
idea.
to you
And
exactly.
it's
This
okay.
is just how economics works. Yes, people lost a huge amount of money today. People's lives were destroyed today.
Okay, that might be true.
That that is
But
true. That is
the fact of
just
the matter
obviously
is,
true.
the fact of the matter is, President Trump believes this is the best course of action for the United States of America.
Okay,
And
if
who are you
extreme,
to say
so
that it
extreme,
isn't?
all right, extreme, very easy then. Extreme Dad, President Trump thinks that shooting you in the head is the best course of best course of action for
That is
America.
an
What's the
absolutely
problem with that?
absurd and ridiculous
What's the problem with that?
comparison.
What's the problem? Wait, no, what's the problem?
It doesn't make you are not even engaging
No,
in
no, I don't.
with what I'm saying.
President Trump thinks it's the best course of action to shoot you in the head. What's your problem with that?
In any way comparable to what I said.
Okay, well, explain
That
why.
is
Why is it
in no
disanalogous? Why is it disanalogous?
because it is an absolutely absurd, hyper fucking
Why is it
extreme.
disanalogous? Explain why it's disanalogous. That's not just saying it's absurd. Is it explain why it's
Because what I'm
disanalogous?
saying is something that actually happened in real life, and what you're saying is a
I know,
completely
Extreme
ridiculous.
Dad. I know you had breakfast this morning. I know you had breakfast this morning. I'm asking, how would you feel if you didn't?
Listen, the fact that it's your lack of intelligence that makes you so combative. Okay, I'm
Oh, it's
trying
my
to sit
lack
here
of
and have a
intelligence.
conversation with
So
you.
can you engage with this? If Trump said it was the best course of action for America to shoot you in the head, would you be able to complain about that or not? Would you be able to say, actually, I think that's a bad idea. Actually, I think that's a really stupid, bad idea to shoot me in the head.
You just said this. Why are we back?
Well, I want
like,
you to engage with the question. Would it be okay for
you
you to
really
say
want
it's a
me to
bad
engage with
idea
that?
if Trump said, I'm
You
going to shoot
believe that
Extreme
I
Dad
need
in
to
the head?
engage with that question? Do you?
Yes, I want you to engage with that
You think I
question.
need to engage with it?
Yeah, I want you to engage with that
You
question.
do.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Wow.
So can you engage with it?
Well, yeah, I do think that I could complain about if the course of America was executing me. I think that yeah, I would have a right to object to that.
Okay.
But if
So
if
why
at
can't
the
I
end of the
say that it's
day,
a bad idea for Trump to do these tariffs and having a horrible effect, and it was an incredibly stupid policy? So what's the problem with that?
there's no problem with it. You're more
No,
than
that,
welcome
you
to
would just
say that.
say
But what I'm saying
okay.
is,
Your rebuttal to me saying that was, well, Trump can do what he wants. Trump can shoot you in the head if he wants.
no, that is not my rebuttal. Is my
It
rebuttal
is.
was
That was
do
your
you
rebuttal.
have
That was exactly
precedent
your rebuttal.
to? No, my rebuttal
No,
was
that was your
how
rebuttal.
can
No,
you
no, no,
know
no, no,
for
no, no,
sure
no.
that this is not a good
No, no,
idea
no. We were way
if you
past
have
that. We were
not
way
been
past that. I laid out my
executed
case why I
in
thought it was a bad idea. We got past that point, and then
No,
you
and I heard
said,
you.
well, Trump said it's the best thing for America, so Trump can do what he wants. That was your argument. That was your next argument. We got past that one, Extreme Dad.
What I'm saying is that President Trump thinks this is a good idea for America, and who are you
President Trump
to
thinks it's a
second
good
guess
idea
that and
to
say, no,
shoot
you know
extreme dad
better?
in the head.
You're not
He thinks
even-
that's a good
you're not
idea.
even
Who are
American.
you to say
You're
that
not even
President Trump
American.
can't shoot extreme dad in the head?
Well, I'm the fucking I'm the interested party. I'm the recipient of the fucking
Okay, yeah, I'm an
you know,
interested party. I participate in the
outcome
world
is,
economy, and it's getting completely fucking raped by
no,
America's stupid
you're
decision making.
okay.
I'm the affected party. I'm an affected party by this. Everyone in the world is affected by this.
You're literally. Oh my god.
Literally, everyone in the world is affected by this.
You know what? You know what's so funny though?
What?
It's the like you do not want to actually have a discussion about
I've engaged with every
the
point. You're the
tariffs
one that's
themselves.
backing out of the discussion at every point. You're just going, well, Trump says it's a good idea. It's worthless engagement. It's not even engagement, frankly.
Wait, why is that worthless? You don't think that saying
Because
that like
yes,
our leader that we elected,
the president can do executive orders to make tariffs. Yes, the president can do that. It's not the discussion. The discussion is it a good idea? I laid out my reasoning, and you just replied, well, Trump can do what he wants. He thinks it's a good idea. So yeah, I know Trump can do what he wants. That doesn't mean it's a good idea. That's what the disagreement
I'm
is.
saying
Fucking idiot.
that he thinks that this is that we've been being taken advantage of, and that this is a way to make that right.
Oh yeah, so how
and
did he
why
work
not?
out? How
Why
did he
should
figure
we
out that you
not?
were being taken advantage of? How does he determine how much a country
I
is
have
taking
no
advantage
idea.
of? I know, Extreme Dad,
I
because
don't
the
know.
calculation's out there. The calculation they use to determine how they're being fucked over is out there, Extreme Dad, and it's just the trade
Okay, and?
deficit. It's just if there's a deficit in trade between America and that country.
Okay,
then,
and
well, that doesn't determine
what's
if you're
your
being
point?
ripped off. All that means is that country's doing manufacturing for your country. That doesn't mean you're being ripped off. It doesn't make a
It
statement on
might
the fairness of
determine
the trade.
you're ripped off, though.
No,
It doesn't.
no,
it
it doesn't.
determine
It
that you're
doesn't.
not being
No,
ripped off.
that
So
okay.
you think that all of the trade, you think that as it was before Trump made any changes, that it was all above, it was all on the up and up. Nobody was being taken advantage of, and everybody was paying their fair share. You believe that?
You just said it doesn't determine that they weren't ripped off. That was your response just then.
I asked you a question. Do you believe that prior to President Trump's presidency, or prior to the changes made by President Trump, the trade negotiations and the trade agreements were fair and square, up and up, everybody paying what they owed, and nobody being taken advantage of?
It depends on which trade agreements. I'm sure in some trade agreements, some people got fucked over more than others, and there's always discrepancies in trade agreements. It's about whether you're actually
it was
addressing.
the United States always getting fucked over.
How'd you know
Nobody else got fucked over.
that? How'd you know that?
How do I know that?
Yeah, I mean, America get insanely cheap goods. Why do you think they're being fucked over?
What I'm saying is that other countries were taking
No,
advantage
I want you to explain to me how they're taking
situation.
advantage. I want you to explain to me how those countries are taking advantage of America.
Because they do not have the GDP to be taken advantage of themselves. And so they just milk the system and get as much money out of
how does that
America
make
as they
any
can.
sense? What are you saying there? They don't have the GDP to be taken advantage of themselves. How would you be less
Yes,
likely to be
because
taken advantage of with a smaller GDP? Surely you would have less leverage in negotiations if that was the case.
that's how it should be.
No, that's
But
how
it's
it
not.
is
What
and
is
has
it?
been.
Look,
Why?
it's like-
So you need to substantiate to me
Oh,
how
yeah,
they're
okay.
taking advantage
know
of America.
Listen, I don't know. I'm not an economist. I don't know
You
much
don't know
about,
much at all, do you? Actually, you don't know
the
much about anything. It's not just economics, is it? It's like any
I
of
don't
this
know.
stuff.
I know a lot about a little.
Oh yeah, what do you know a lot
I know
about?
a lot
Prison,
about a little, for sure.
molesting kids, getting caught for being a pedophile.
Yeah,
online?
actually, yeah. I mean, those are I'm pretty strong in those areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
I would
right,
say that
Extreme
they're
Dad.
not my strongest topics, but I mean, all right, buddy. Have a good day.
All right, I'm gonna bring the next guy in. I'll catch you later. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Hey,
All right,
all right,
catch
no
you
problem.
later. Okay, Mighty Meats, your turn. Hello, Mighty Meats. I assume this is the based or whatever it was in chat. I can't remember your username.
Kuihman.
Hello, your mic is a little bit tinny.
Yeah, Kuihman, you hear me?
Kinda, yep.
All right. So what I'm trying to get across is the benefits to the tariffs that have been put in place.
Okay, what are the benefits?
Well, one, bringing manufacturing back to America, which
Okay.
was once
Hold
a
there, hold
powerhouse
there.
of manufacturing,
Just
but
pause
has
there.
become dependent.
Wait, pause on the manufacturing thing. So, why do you believe that manufacturing is going to be onshored as a result of these tariffs?
Because it makes the pricing competitive as to comparable slave labor that is used in Hungary, Vietnam, Taiwan, all
Okay.
these places that
Okay.
are being exploited for
let's say,
manipulation.
okay, so if they're using essentially slave labor in these other countries, why would they bring it back to the US, even with tariffs, okay? Because these tariffs are all they're about is trade deficit. They don't actually really do a good job of determining fairness in the trade. Why would they move for likely temporary tariffs, move their manufacturing back to America to pay workers a living wage in America? Why would they do that? Why would they not either automate or
Like
try to just find
Apple,
other ways of
NVIDIA,
avoiding?
Intel, multiple car manufacturers have already declared hundreds of billions of dollars to build factories, which will, one, create construction jobs, and two, create manufacturing jobs in the areas in which they are built.
Okay.
Is that correct?
You recognize that not necessarily many manufacturing jobs at all.
This is the
could be
third guy
automated.
with a
Sorry,
lateral
2
list
seconds.
counting Extremidad and space.
Sorry, it was a
Something
TTS.
is your foot.
Sorry, what was I saying? Yeah, so they're not likely to be manufacturing jobs, a lot of them. It's going to be almost totally automated. That's going to be a lot of the manufacturing that comes back, and it's going to be increasingly automated as time goes on. They're going to be prepared for that automation to ramp up, so they're going to be ready to scale back if they make these plants. They're going to be ready to scale back real workers, because obviously it's going to be more profitable to use automation.
So to even if there is
sorry,
a
just 2
dozen
seconds.
workers
There's a second
at a
point to that.
factory,
There's a second point to that. Sorry. Even with the construction,
go ahead.
even with the construction jobs, okay, not every creation of jobs is necessarily a good calculation. If you're spending an insane amount of money per job to get that job created, that's not actually a good economic calculation, even though you've brought a job back to your country. So, for instance, I believe there's one calculation where there was something like one Trump program resulted in new jobs, but it cost America like $800,000 per job to bring that job back. That's like insane. That's not a good calculation. Even if you're bringing those jobs back, that's an absurd calculation that just, why would you ever do that? That's insane. So why do you think it's even a good idea to bring manufacturing back? And secondly, why do you think that there are going to be manufacturing jobs that come from this?
Well, for example, we can look back a few years ago to the chip shortage, that they couldn't manufacture computers, televisions, automobiles, and countless other things because there was a chip shortage, as we are dependent on a country that was undergoing a lot of strife. Now, that's just one example.
Sure. So
another one
wait,
would
hold
be
up.
Johnson &
I
Johnson
want to talk
committing
about
to
that
come
one.
back.
I want to talk about this one specifically. So the chip shortage. I agree. That's like an important industry, right? That was basically, it was like, it's a sort of the Taiwan power issue, right? Is why people want Taiwan is because of the chips, or wanted Taiwan because of chip plants. So that's an industry where there is a pretty okay argument for some level of protectionism to bring that industry into your country, because there's a huge national security benefit. There's a huge long-term benefit to having that industry in your country for some manufacturing. Makes sense to tariff maybe chips or something. Make a specific tariff there and try and bring it back with a program at home to onshore that production. What doesn't make sense is to scattergun apply a universal tariff for one or two sectors.
Well, what you're going to see is these very important industries coming back. You're not going to see Fashion Nova open up a warehouse in Michigan to manufacture clothing, because that's not what it's designed for. It's designed to take away our dependence from external countries and being able to be self-reliant by producing our own medicine, technology, and so forth.
Okay, yeah, but why wouldn't you do that with specific tariffs on specific industries and plans to onshore those industries? Why would you do that with a universal tariff?
Because the universal tariffs are actually although on paper they look to be, a chopping block for companies being able to make their profitability by losing a large percentage, what it's really doing is getting these other countries that are dependent on our customers, the United States money, to be able to fund their companies and countries. If they're no longer getting that, then they are going to look at taking away some of the tariffs imposed on the US, like the Canadian Prime Minister, who's come out and said that they will drop all the tariffs. Israel, now, I don't want to get into the whole Israel thing.
Israel had already dropped the tariffs, right?
They dropped their entire tariff. Yeah, so by instilling tariffs that are
what do you mean Canada said they... Wait. Why do you think Canada are dropping their tariffs when they said they're matching the US auto tariffs?
It hurts them more than it.
No, but you said they had announced they were dropping the tariffs. They said they announced they were dropping the tariffs. They haven't, as far as I'm aware.
Last night, on a news interview, they announced that they are ready to drop all the tariffs. If the United States will drop all the tariffs, they said they will do it within the hour. So they are...
that's the reciprocal... Position. Wait, no, stop. That's the reciprocal tariffs that Canada have put on to combat the ones put on by the White House. They're saying that if Trump stops...
tariffs are...
They're saying that if Trump stops doing tariffs on us, we will stop the tariffs that we put on in response. It's not about the tariffs that were existed beforehand. There are tariffs that the US has, that Canada has on the US since before this, but they are all agreed as part of NAFTA. It's stuff like to protect like the Canadian agriculture industry, because that's a huge national security thing. So there is some tariffs that Canada has on the US, but they are all pre-negotiated in NAFTA. Canada isn't dropping those. It's about the reciprocal tariffs that Canada put on in response to the Trump tariffs. That's what you're talking about right now. That you're not achieving any goal there. You'll just bring us back to where we started.
Well, the main issue is that it's become a war game, and the real deal is that the United States is the one who is needed around the world to be able to fund their economies. We have propped up so many countries like there's some third world slum.
Dude,
and that may have been true 100 years ago.
Trade isn't propping a country up. What do you mean by that? You realize that you benefit massively as an American from
invalid tariffs. You are propping up a country.
It's not. Wait, no. Why are you accepting invalid tariffs? Which tariffs?
Does this brat not appreciate that U.S. manufacturing has to pay the tariffs on all their inputs, so it's more expensive to manufacture in the U.S.?
Sorry, I had TTS. So what are the unjust tariffs?
No, it's fine. I got it. So, for example, the milk coming from Canada.
You mean milk going into Canada? You mean milk going into Canada?
Yes. Milk going into Canada is tariffed at a large scale. Large quantities of milk are tariffed 600%.
So let me explain to you exactly what happens there. So Canada allows a certain amount of milk that was negotiated within NAFTA to be exported from the US to Canada. If they want to go over that level of dairy imports, they have to pay a tariff. Okay, this is to make sure that American milk, because America is a massive country that's right next to Canada, they don't just flood the Canadian market and take away this very important national security piece of national security that they need, which is their own agriculture, their own food industry. Every country needs, to some extent, their own food and agriculture industry, because that is a huge national security concern to have another country being totally in control of that.
Now, let me ask you, why shouldn't the United States be in control of that as well? Why shouldn't we protect our own industries? Why should we bow down to every other country and say your industry is more important than our industry?
That's not what's being said. The US does use tariffs.
That's what's historically been done.
No, it's not. You're just making that up because you feel like America is important and rich. That's all you're saying. It's like, well, we're important and rich, so we should get everything. That's all you're saying. You're not actually making a statement of how fair the trades are.
No, we make everything. We're the big boss of
you don't make
the world.
Everything.
And that's
you don't make
reality
everything. That's not true. China makes everything.
We have the superpower overseeing, policing, and financing the world.
Yeah, because everyone else decided to work with you. Everyone else chose to work with you, and now they don't want you anymore, so you're losing that position.
it's not a choice to work with us. It's
It
to work
actually
with us
is. It
or
actually is,
continue to
because
be a
I
third world
don't know if you know.
slum.
I don't know if you know, but there's this place called it's called a place called like China and Russia. They actually are always looking for countries to work more closely with them. And they
Well,
don't
if
just
we want to
randomly
get
fuck
into the
over their
war
allies
games
for
of
no
trying to
reason.
fight communism by bringing countries under our umbrella, that's a completely different subject. But the reality is we have propped up hundreds of governments to be able to control what we do, and at the same time, we have been bleeding our pockets dry to do that.
Yeah, you
Now,
don't know. You've not made any
the
statement. You're just
general
like you're not
consensus,
saying anything. You're not actually saying anything. How has America been ripped off?
the reciprocal tariffs
Okay, give me
are
one
a
example
perfect
of a
example.
tariff that was wrong, invalid, or hurt America, and why it was wrong, invalid, or hurt America. Give me one example.
Automobiles
Okay.
and South Korea.
South Korean automobile tariffs. What's the problem with South Korean automobile tariffs?
The problem with automobile tariffs are that the incoming tariff, a car going to South Korea is over 120% on a tariff, whereas a car coming to America is 2%. Now you can see how the automotive industry in America has been greatly hurt by that, seeing as all of the major manufacturers left the country to be able to pay lower wages, to be able to produce for a higher profit margin. Now, since then, we do not. Now, South Korea, they produce a lot of cars. They send them to the United States. They send millions of cars a year to the United States. They're only getting 2.5%.
Okay, so you know that Canada.
You see what I'm
Sorry,
saying?
not Canada.
And as a result,
Sorry, 1 minute. You know that. Sorry, wait. You're saying about South Korean. Wait a minute. You're saying about South Korean automobile tariffs. You know that Trump in 2018 actually negotiated with South Korea about car tariffs, and in response, in exchange for concessions on other goods and services, South Korea actually extended the tariffs until 2041 as a result of negotiations with Trump already. So the tariffs
7 years ago.
put up.
This is a completely different
yeah, but
time.
you're talking about America being fucked over for so long, and Trump's going to fix it. But Trump already did this, and that tariff went up last time. So that was a terrible example.
As a result,
it was extended.
we have increased the tariffs to make it work for us. That's the reality of the situation. Is the United States wants to secure manufacturing, to not be dependent, and to secure the economy as to not have the United States dollars leaving the country in droves and keeping the dollars within the economy circulating.
Okay. I've got someone else that wants to come in that's been in chat for a while, but thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
All right. Catch you later. Jakub, hello. Jakub, are we here? You're muted. I don't know if you know. Which wait a minute, I guess. See if he mic's up. Nope, he's gone. Okay. Oh, he's unmuted in the stream waiting room. Bring him back. Hello?
Whoa, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry about that. Fucking app. I'm at work, so I'm on lunch break.
Okay. What did you want to say about tariffs?
Well, so the idea of tariffs is obviously to protect industry.
Well,
so
not necessarily. Okay, they can be used to protect the industry, but a tariff is just a tool that can be used for many differently. Yeah, sure. Okay.
It can be used as like a political tool and stuff, but that's like the worst way to use it. Essentially, your problem is what? That it's a 10% tariff, like blanket tariff.
It doesn't make any sense. The policy doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter. It literally has no logic to it.
Well, it does, because a tariff essentially.
So explain to me what is the No. You explain to me the Trump policy. Don't just say to me what a tariff is. Explain to me the rationale behind this Trump policy. That's what we're talking about. I know what a tariff is.
The rationale behind the Trump policy.
Yeah. Why is this a good idea?
Market.
How does it create a more competitive market?
because it provides a more competitive market for investors to invest in American domestic policy rather than foreign investment, rather than importing goods from overseas. It's literally that simple. If you've got an industry that's like, because America
Okay,
hasn't
so
like lost all of its
let's say that. So you believe that the government making things more expensive arbitrarily to
expensive for who?
Expensive for the manufacturers and consumers.
It's expensive for the people, the capital people that are investing into these industries that are building them up.
More expensive for everyone.
It's cheaper.
It's more expensive for everyone.
No, it's cheaper. It's cheaper for these companies to go overseas to China.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Stuff, yeah?
Yes. Because the US is arbitrarily raising the price of doing these things, so that the market is so that you can't compete in the same way. That's lowering how competitive the market is. You can't compete in the same way.
No.
They don't have as many options. They're trying to limit options.
Essentially, in the past, you had an economy in America that was all about producing huge goods, right? And then as that sort of changed and the Chinese market opened up, you saw investors take away the jobs from America, ship them overseas to places like China, Vietnam, all that sort of stuff. And that's because it's cheaper for the investor class. So when you're hearing these people like the Democrats and Republicans,
no. It's not just because it's cheaper for the investor. Wait, no, it's not just cheaper for the investor class. It's cheaper for everyone.
No, that's not true. No.
Okay, how is it not cheaper for everyone? How does the lower cost of goods not go into the consumer? Not go to the consumer?
Well, sorry, no, yeah, it is cheaper, but you're also losing.
Okay, so it's cheaper for everyone. So it is cheaper for everyone, isn't it?
Well, it's cheaper goods. I would say that, yeah.
It's cheaper. It is cheaper for everyone. It is cheaper for everyone. That's tariffs make things more expensive for everyone. Not having tariffs makes it cheaper, right?
Yeah, but you pay a price elsewhere.
Okay, what price are Americans paying on this?
Well, what happens when a country has a trade deficit? They're exporting less goods than they're importing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a trade deficit. And what happens when you give China a bunch of money for goods? They take that money and then they invest it back into the American economy, because that's the go-to economy. They invest it back in the stock market. They invest it into retail, insurance. That's why you've seen like a wealth transfer over the last 30, 40 years, longer actually, from a producing economy of industry and all that to a service economy. That's what it is now. It's retail, it's insurance, it's finance, it's speculation. It's all this transfer of money. That's where all the money is now. And what America has lost is it's lost all of its capability to produce. Like, for instance, China can produce like 400 times the amount of ships that America can, because it's got that shipyards. It's got that stuff for the commercial importing. Like, they've got it all. Like, America needs to plan in a long run how to protect its country, especially as the world's getting more volatile.
Okay, you recognize that it's not simply the case that, oh, well, it's cheaper to do it over there, so they took those jobs away from Americans. People don't want manufacturing jobs. They don't want to be working in factories doing fucking backbreaking labor. The point of moving into a service economy isn't just, oh, we've been ripped off and now it's a service economy. It's about moving forward. It is a progressive thing that not progressive in the sense of like liberal values or whatever, but progressive in the sense of like you're moving forward, right? People don't want to be in factories. People want to have more skilled jobs in offices. They want to be customer facing, stuff like this. That is a preferable position for people in the first world. So they have, not only for the cost of cheaper goods, but for a better life, outsourced shit jobs, shit wages to other people, right? That's like, it's been a benefit to the American people to move this shit out of their country.
They weren't shit jobs or shit wages at the time when they started moving.
But they will be now, because they have to compete with not only Chinese workers, but also robots.
Well,
leave it to two Commonwealth foods to have an educated and calm discussion about America.
Okay, so the point isn't then to bring jobs back at all, is it? The point is just to have the manufacturing back.
I think you'll see an influx of jobs, because
but you understand.
Hang on. Let me speak. you're going to see an influx of agriculture. You're going to see an influx of textile companies like American-made startups where they make American clothes and stuff. That's not. It's not all going to be shit.
You think it's going to be an
working in the
influx of
mines.
agriculture? You think it's going to be an influx of agriculture jobs to America?
I think yeah. I think you will
Okay,
see more.
total
I think you
delusion.
will see.
That's total delusion.
Why? Why
Because
is that delusion?
Because they don't. Because America exports a fuck ton of agriculture.
Yeah, and they also import.
Okay, so
They
okay,
import a fuckload of
what
as
agriculture do you
well.
think is coming back to the US?
I would have to look into. I don't have the
Okay,
specifics in front of me.
What I'm
Well,
saying is
I
America
didn't see-
exports
I'm
far more in
fucking sitting on my
terms of
lunch.
agriculture. Like, they export far more. America's got loads of fucking farms and shit, and like insane like regulations on allowing people to genetically modify everything. Like just pump out loads of everything all the time. That's why Canada has to have protections against their fucking market.
Yeah, that's true. You're right on that. But the point is though, even
There's not going to be an influx of
do you wanna
agriculture jobs. It's insane. Not all manufacturing or anything, and it's especially not going to happen if you do a universal policy that doesn't have any plan for onshoring.
what country would you rather be? The country that can build ships, can build ammunition at mass, can build planes, jets, textiles for if shit hits
I
the
would
fan.
rather be the
Hang on, hang on.
I'm
Why
explaining
would
to
you
you
rather
what.
be the country that has like speculator bankers, finances, people who do insurance, who make all their money on the stock market? Which country out of those two would you rather have bringing in a base income, which, by the way, doesn't even really fulfill America's income, seeing as it constantly in debt and China's constantly buying it up? So, well, like half the retail markets in our countries are all fucked because China's buying our goods at less than what they're giving us, and then they're investing in all of our retail, all of our stock market, like our businesses, and they're slowly taking over everything. A 10% tariff is supposed to be a blanket, and it's actually targeted more at China specifically, but it's supposed to be a blanket tax that creates a competitive environment for your national country to produce. That's essentially what it is. That's as simple as what it is.
A blanket
You can't really
tariff
make it.
is fucking retarded because each industry has a different state. Like they're all in different positions, and putting just a blanket tariff on that doesn't account for the state of those individual industries, it doesn't account for what the actual trade deals are between America and the country they're trading with.
Though.
It doesn't.
It does because they put more tariffs on the countries that they're getting. Like for instance, with China, they'll put more on.
Okay, how did they determine how much tariffs to put on these countries?
I would assume it's to do with how much they're paying, like how much they're importing compared to how much they're exporting.
Yeah, so it's literally just the trade deficit, right?
America's bringing back bananas, coffee, cocoa beans, tea and pineapples back into the hands of farmers in South Dakota where they belong. Triumphant face emoji.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Jimberly, for the $5. Thank you. Sorry, would you ask?
So why is that bad? Why is it bad to rule it off the trade deficit?
To rule it off the trade deficit? Well, because it doesn't actually determine how much you're being ripped off by that country. It's just a pure trade volume question, right?
Well, yeah, that sort of determines how much we need to start making rather than taking in.
No, the point was you're being ripped off because, like, if you're in a good position with those countries, if you're getting good deals with that country, and you're actually you're in a positive position with that country, why would you want to just stick a tariff on them?
Because you want to increase the industry that you're trying to tariff. So if you're trying to send in,
but it's not just an industry, is it? It's every industry.
No, because they targeted more depending on what industry it is.
But there is a tariff on every industry, right? That is the basic. That is a universal. It's a flat tariff, a global tariff.
Yes. There's a baseline.
So it's not targeted.
10%. Yeah, no, but that's because the whole point of the 10 baseline tariff, the 10% baseline tariff, is to create a 10% more competitive market in everything.
It's not just about a 10% baseline tariff, is it? It's also it's a blanket tariff that is determined by the trade deficit between the US and that country.
Yes. To create a more competitive market in America.
It does not in any way account for the trade deals between America and that country, and whether they're fair or not, whether even America might have a preferable deal in the current status quo or anything like that, right? It doesn't account for any of that.
No, it basically puts all the brunt on the American industry to step up its game and start accounting for those.
Okay.
So if they're buying wine
What
from
effect does that
Australia,
have? What effect does that
and
have? What effect is that going to have?
increases production in America.
Okay, what other effect does it have?
Well, it creates jobs.
Okay, what
It
other effect does it
turns
have?
investors. It turns investors from, instead of investing in other countries' imported goods, to invest in its own national
You
economy.
can't think of any other effects that this has.
Not really.
Does
So
it
you're going to say
by any
that
chance
it
sharply
raises
raise prices for consumers and reduce the average person's buying power? But no conceivable
It can
benefit
do that.
to the
It can
average
do that,
person.
but it won't be. It won't be forever. It won't be forever.
It won't be forever.
The economy.
Okay, so how long is it going to be for?
price-
So for how long are Americans going to have to starve? How long is it going to be for?
They're not going to starve. They're not going to starve.
Yeah, you don't think any Americans are going to
No,
starve?
no. Tariffs are like objectively better for income earners than they are for the wealthy class. Like, that's just an objective fact. If your country is investing more into its own economy to produce its own goods, that is objectively better for the citizens of that country. Rather
How's
than
that it's objectively better. It's objectively better.
Google right now, is tariffs better for income earners or the wealthy class? Google that right now and tell me what you get.
Hey, that's not what you said just then. You said it was objectively better for that country. You said it was objectively better for the country to have the.
Said it was objectively better for the income earners of its country than the wealthy class. That's what I said.
You mean it has less of an effect, as in like the price surge or whatever has less of an impact?
It benefits, like the long term effect.
I don't think there's evidence to say that having blanket tariffs benefits workers. I don't think there's reason to believe that.
There's what do you mean? It creates an industry that the workers can work in.
But no, okay, that you just. But that's assuming you create the industry, like you're actually getting a significant amount of jobs. Just having like, what if there's only like a few thousand jobs that come from this? Well, it doesn't benefit the workers, does it at all?
What if it turns into 10,000 jobs over 50
yeah,
to
true.
100
It could be that you only spend $1 for every million jobs that you make in the US. It could be the case in a magical world where we just imagine that there's not automation and there's not other countries that you're competing with. We just imagine that's the case. Yeah, sure. Okay, we can think that maybe this would be a good idea. Sure, yeah. It's just like you're not really even engaging with the topic, dude.
I am engaging in the topic.
You're not, because you're sitting there. You're sitting there honestly arguing to me that it's good for the for lower middle class people to have the cost of everyday goods,
to have their money invested in their own country,
to have the cost of everyday goods surge, to have the cost of everyday goods surge.
It's not stupid to argue that when money is invested in your own country and your own country's industry, that benefits the people that would be working those jobs to create that industry. That is just like,
you haven't shown, but we know.
101.
Okay, so two things. So two very obvious things here. First of all, there's no plan for onshoring, which I've already explained to you. These aren't targeted tariffs. There's no plan for onshoring. There's no actual plan here to get these manufacturing jobs back. And second of all, the idea that any of these jobs are even coming back is kind of delusional in the first place. It's like, yeah, you'll get some jobs back, but they're going to be fucking H-1B Indian jobs coding the robots that make the cars. It ain't going to be people making the cars in Detroit. That's not going to be the fucking case.
One, speculation. You have no idea. It's never really been done before.
I know that there will not be huge manufacturing jobs coming back to the US. I know that to be the case.
You do not know that. It's never
really
been.
How much money do you bet on it? How much money do you bet on it?
When are you going to come back to me in 50 years? And
we can talk about it in a year.
Well, a year you won't see that sort of growth straight away. It'd have to be aggressive policy. Next 4 years of Trump.
Yeah.
At the end of the Trump
But countries have no reason to believe that these tariffs are going to last the next 4 years. So why would they spend the insane amounts of money on decades-long onshoring programs that will take years to complete for tariffs that aren't going to last the next 3 years?
It's a permanent 10% tax. What are you talking about?
You think it's not good? You think it's not going to be there when Trump's out?
No, if another Republican gets in, it'll stay in.
All right, if another Republican gets in, right.
Get the last tariff.
Dude, literally the Republicans are going to be fucking on pikes within the next 4 years. Dude. There won't be Republicans to take office.
Did Biden keep the last tariff? Did Biden keep the last tariff? Did Biden keep the last tariff?
On China, yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be so
Yeah,
confident.
that's
to
a
turn around and
targeted
just pretend like
tariff.
they're gonna
That's a
get rid of it.
targeted tariff, retard.
It does not matter. It's a fucking tariff. Like
Yes,
he
it
still
does.
won't
It
keep
literally
He
does
won't.
matter. It literally does matter. That's like the
If
key
after
issue.
this next 4
It's
years,
not tariffs
you
bad.
can get off
Dude,
of
the
it because
argument isn't
you
tariffs
fucking-
bad. That's not the argument. The
Yes,
argument
it
is
says-
blanket tariffs bad because you're just making things cost more with no plan.
There is a plan. It's going to increase American industry.
Dude,
It's
no,
a
there's not. You
nationalistic
haven't
plan.
actually got a plan for bringing the jobs back on shore, retard. All it is a flat tariff that's just been put in place.
The jobs are there. The
jobs aren't there, obviously, are they? Otherwise, people
Yes,
working
there are.
them.
No, there is. There's a steel industry. There's a
Dude.
textile industry in America. It's not big, but it provides a framework, a environment for those companies to now
Right.
succeed
All right, man.
better than they were before.
All right, man.
All right,
Okay.
well, I'm going back to work.
I'll catch
It
you
was fun
later.
arguing with her.
Yeah, you too. All right,
See you,
catch you later. All right. I think that's the tariff segment. I think I got the tariff segment there, I think. A few debates. Roundup of what happened. I think that's the tariff segment. I think that's done.